At what point did you become profitable?
When we came back to Accra, this is 3 years ago.
So after a 10th edition, before you started seeing the profitability?
If you see that young people are dancing, it doesn't mean that the band must dance. It means that the band must question what is causing young people to dance.
Beryl Agyekum Ayaaba, founder and chief executive officer of EchoHouse, studied engineering, then engineered culture. She started setting out to tell stories that weren't being told. What began as a campus magazine became EchoHouse, one of Africa's most influential creative and experiential marketing powerhouses. EchoHouse, which has grown to now become Johnny Walker's creative and digital agency for South, Western, and Central Africa, with offices in 5 countries and counting. She doesn't believe in growth by luck, but by systems. Because creativity without systems is just noise. She is unlearning micromanagement, challenging brands to invest in culture for the long term, and asking the hard question Africa keeps avoiding.
Sometimes when you're in business for a long time, you think you deserve it. You can't deserve growth
or success. Hello and welcome to the Rooted in Quality podcast. Our guest is Beryl Agyekum Ayaaba.
Yes, sir.
Chief Executive Officer and founder of EchoHouse. I've always known you as Beryl Agyekum.
Yeah.
Now you are a Mrs.
And then I got married.
Beryl, thank you for joining us.
You're welcome.
Before we start the conversation, I want you to look at something. This was a message you sent me. This was the date is 14th June 2010.
Oh my gosh.
So it says, I want you to read this and I'll ask you the question.
So business is great. I'm enjoying it. I'm almost done with service and I'll do this full time. You, how are you doing?
So you sent me this message in 2010.
Yeah.
When you had just finished university and you had done your national service. And you said, almost done with service, then I will do this full time.
Yeah.
How did you get that vision to say that you were very certain that this is what you wanted to do?
I was a civil engineer. It's not something I was enjoying very much. I think I got into it because, at the point, I like physics, and so physics, if you like physics, you go and do engineering. Okay. So that's sort of the natural. But then I was in the engineering class and I didn't really enjoy it as much. And so we started this magazine, Echo magazine, which was starting to do well. And I liked it. I like how it made me feel. I like bringing it to life, and I like the excitement that it brought to campus, And so when we finished school, I thought that this was going to be it, and then a team of students put themselves together and said they wanted to continue. So for me, that was like validation that this could, and at the point I didn't know what it could be, but I just wanted to give it my best shot. Yes,
that was a very good best shot.
Yeah.
Now, tracing back to building EchoHouse, what problem were you really trying to solve when you started? Like, what part of that problem currently exists in the market?
I think for me, I didn't start out to build an agency. I started out to build a magazine that would tell the story of KNUST to the rest of the world. At the time, I thought so many things were happening on campus, and nobody, if you were outside campus, you wouldn't know. And that was before Facebook and all that, right? So it was like there was not much. So we wanted to just simply say, this is what happened this semester, and even for people to be able to, keep the memories of the things that happened on campus. So, now when I look back at it, I would say we're trying to build a community, but at the point, it was just an exciting thing. For me also, it was a distraction from just I thought engineering was a bit difficult.
So it was like your safe haven
It was
from
just
having to deal with the
my
difficulty
escape,
in
my
engineering.
escape.
Now, looking back, what part of your younger self still runs EchoHouse today?
The defiant person. So I'm very calm. My mom says I'm unassuming, but I am very defiant in the sense that there's nothing like this is how it's done for me. There's nothing like it's been done this way. It's always been done this way. So you have to sort of come and keep doing it that way. And so we started out and we sort of were always underdogs, so people would relate to us like the kids who are trying to do something.
Yeah.
And that was okay for me, but I just needed to show that it would turn into something awesome. I didn't know what the end goal was. I just knew that it could be more. At every point in time, I would discover another thing, that sort of added to what we had already. And so I got into this phase of always adding on to what we were doing and evolving it. But I am an extremely defiant person, so that's sort of where
kept you going.
Yeah.
Now, what did studying engineering teach you that for all the years that you've been in marketing can never teach you?
I think systems thinking, and what I mean by that is, this idea that like marketing is a very fluid art, science, whichever way I should call it. But engineering teaches you this idea of systems, building systems out of everything. And so if you come into EchoHouse, even though we are one big organization, it's small systems. A lot of, like, I have this thought of growing big by remaining small. So that means that we have, instead of one big giant, we have little multi-systems in there. We have different departments that function, coming together to become one big organization. So engineering has taught me systems. I think and I use that at every turn. Yeah.
Now, what was the pivot from engineering to culture, a rebellion? Was it like trying to rebel against the whole system of trying to put you in a box to be an engineer?
No.
Or was something that you realized that, okay, over time, this is you?
Yeah, it's something I realized, so the maybe I would say 70% realization and 30% rebellion, in the sense that I think that I'm just not somebody who conforms very easily. I don't scream about it, or I don't look like the typical,
So it's cautious aggression.
Yes,
Okay.
So I realized that at every point, like when I finished high school, everybody's thought was, you have to go and do medicine. I'm like, no, I'm not. And it's not because there's something wrong with it. It's just not my thing, And so, I mean, when I finished school, I remember my mom, my mom and dad, at the time, Ghana had just found oil. Mm-hmm. And there was they put me in an oil and gas school. I went for a few lectures and I'm like, no, this isn't. So my mom never understood that, like, why you're not screaming, but you're not also going with what we have said, So that's sort of been my route. Yeah.
At what moment, looking at the business from the early stages, at what moment did you realize that, okay, this is actually not a hassle?
It's serious.
Like,
business.
Okay, this has to be serious business. When did that moment happen?
So we had started to do our own events, and then I had come across a Kenyan agency. That's how come I even found out that there's something called like agency business. I learned from there and everything. But we sat, at the point when we were going to do an event, we would send proposals out to brands, and then they would give us some money. And then we had sent a proposal out to one of the beverage brands, and this agency was like, no, why are you asking them for just this small money? And they sat down with us and did an actual budget. And then when I looked at it, I'm like, there's no way that somebody would give us that kind of money, for something that we had priced at maybe 100 times less.
Okay.
We sent it to the brand and then they approved it. And I'm like, okay, this is serious. This is something we have to take seriously. So that's for me was the point when I realized that this could be something proper. And yeah.
Now, in the journey, who did you have to try to stop to impress before the business really grew? At the point when you were figuring it out in the marketing space as an engineer.
So I have this concept around gatekeeping, around how it's been done in the past. So, we started because we had teams all over the campuses in Ghana and everything, and the natural thing was we want to be known as a full service agency, or at least we want to be able to do the full project. But because again there are also people who have, let's say, done it in the past, and we are sort of like the intruders, we are usually given like a little pie, like a little bit of it, right? So it's like, okay, you guys do the hype and then somebody will do the event, or things like that. And it used to bother me a lot until I came across this concept of the reserve player. And the idea for me was, it's okay where you bring me on board, it's fine, it's a big project, but you want me to do this one particular thing. But that thing that you've given me to do, I will do it with all my strength. I'll impress you so much that the next time you won't see a reason to not give me the full project. So I sort of stopped whining about being given a small part of the cake when I come into the conversation. So yeah, that's for me has been like the moment I stopped worrying about needing to prove that I could do it. I've been in a very, for me, it's been a bit of a free flow,
And it sort of built the foundation that once you are credible or reliable to do the little things, then now you can be trusted with the big things. And I think it's a very powerful concept that helps growth, but a lot of young people tend not to see things that way, because most people feel like, okay, I've been to the university, I have a degree. So when you are coming to work, you feel like the boss who has been preparing for 20 years to do what they are doing, you're like, okay, I want to be him right after university. But it's amazing that back then, when you had just started, you could actually look at things that way.
Even now, like, it's very important to me. It's not about coming in big or saying we've been doing this this is our 18th year, we've been doing this for 18 years. That is not the biggest thing for me. The biggest thing is, how do I prove to you that I'm worth giving me a bigger pie, a bigger part of the cake.
Now I'm going to move a little bit into your business, since we've set the tone for the foundations and how EchoHouse was built and all that. Now, what was the first big mistake that cost you real money or reputation on this journey?
I will say reputation, because I think 4 years ago we've been doing Tidal Rave for years. It's like our thing.
Tidal Rave is like a youth concert. Maybe give a little bit more context for our viewers who are not and listeners who are not in Ghana.
Okay, so Tidal Rave is a beach festival that sort of it's begun with students saying, okay, when we are on the long vacation, it's 3 months, we don't see each other, so we could do something. And so it was a very petite, thing that the students owned. And then it grew over the years. So at the point where I'm talking about, we had done it now for 9 years, and COVID came, and then there was a break. So we were doing maybe, let's say, 10,000 people at that time. And we had been doing it in Kokobiti for a long time, which is one of the beaches in Accra,
along the coast.
Accra. But COVID, 2 years, no Tidal Rave, and then we thought we were bringing it back, and therefore we needed to do a lot of work to get people excited about Tidal Rave again. We went back to the campuses, door-to-door storms, so many things. And then we also changed the venue. So it was like a lot of different things happening at the same time. But that particular one turned out oversubscribed, too many people. It was a bit of a disaster, and so when we finished that, for me, that was like, I think it was a huge, like, what just happened, and so I would say that for a lot of the brands and everybody sort of gave it a second look. We had to go back in, sit down again and say, what is this thing actually? We started it as a student, busing students to Kokobiti and stuff like that. It seems to have evolved. What is it really today? and how do we look at it? And so we came back again with Tidal Wave, the new Rave, moved it to Accra, like brought it closer, and just we looked at a security conversation all over again, and that has completely turned it around into like a really, this year we did about 21,000 people.
21,000 people?
Yeah, at La Pau. And so, I mean, at the point it felt like the end of the road. I mean, I feel like we've managed to turn it into something bigger, but that for me was one of those moments I think I'll never forget.
That particular incident, was it a security issue? Was it overcrowding? Was it the logistics for the event that wasn't put together well?
Everything, like, you know, so it's like maybe there are some moments that everything comes together at once. So we changed the venue. Now, security in the sense that because there was so much traffic and everything, people parked far away and walked, and therefore like in the township there was people, you know,
breaking into cars,
yes, and stuff like that. Then also in terms of even because you know when you're doing, and that's one of the things about festivals, you don't get a dry run. Like, you can try your sound, and then when the crowd comes, it's a different conversation. So those dynamics sort of came together into just every little thing becoming problematic. Yes. So that's something I think I'll never forget. I'll never forget.
Now that you are a creative company, what do you think you underestimated, and then the reality of it hits you and you're like, okay, maybe I might have bitten too much?
I think just so two things for me. Just working with people is one of the things that it's like it's a consistent learning curve for me, in the sense that, you know, we started out as these underdogs. I have my guys who, like, you know, they finish school, they come in straight to work with me. Their parents are like, what is this thing that you're doing? And they've defied the odds and that whole dynamic, you know. But there's also the idea of what people actually want or need, you know, and sometimes what the business can provide. So that whole cocktail is a mixture of, you know, something I'm now trying to discover, you know, even though I've done it for this long. So working with people is a really big thing, and agency business is people business. So that dynamic is not an easy thing. I think also just this idea of where Africa is going versus what the brands are willing to. So, you know, sometimes the brands, how much they are willing to enter the culture, you know, how much they are willing to
invest
go
in the culture.
Yes, because, you know, the thing is, culture is not simply somebody's doing something, let me put money behind it so that I look good. Culture is where is the industry going, or where are these people going? How do I invest to make them better? And it's not very easy to find brands, you know, who want to actually stay the course of that. It's more like I have a campaign, who is the best person, and that is usually very challenging, I think. Yeah,
that's a very short-termist outlook to
exactly
brands. I'll come back on this discussion because we are seeing a lot of evolution around how brands communicate in the new era, and what it's going to mean when we have a lot of very analytic or stringent things that previously used to be done by whole teams, now being done by machines. And then the culture of a person who doesn't have to do the things that they went to school to train for, and what does it translate into for consumer behavior, new appetites and all that. So I'll come to that, but there's something that you talked about earlier, when you started off and you were making proposals and you didn't know how to price yourself. At what point did you now figure out how to actually price yourself properly? Have you even figured it out now?
So the way the marketing industry is working, we started out with this idea of, I need to be on social media, go into the mall and do an activation for me. You figure that out, you manage to understand what that means, and then content sort of now comes into so you're feeling like, I was just grappling with this, and now there's this. Now today the conversation is about AI and what it can do, you know. And so I feel like at every moment we have figured it out at that moment. Now the point is how to transition into what is next, because sometimes what you thought was very valuable is not valuable anymore.
Yeah.
And then what you I think my finance team is always having this conversation with me, because they feel like we need our service to mature before we go and try out a new thing. But you also notice that it doesn't wait for you.
The market is not waiting for you to mature.
Yeah, it doesn't wait for you to finish maturing your products, and reaping the full benefits of it before it introduces AI. And AI catapults us almost by 6 or 7 years. Something that will have happened in 7 years now happens in 6 months.
Yeah.
So that it's like almost like being very intelligent billing, if I should call it, right? Directing your mind to what the client values, and sometimes also being able to educate the client on what value is, because that entirety can be confusing. Yeah.
I think from what you say, it's become very clear that then the skill is not so much how you figure things out, but the ability to learn to figure things out. Because now when you master that, then no matter what comes to you already have built the capability to.
Exactly. Yesterday, so one of the departments in Echo have done, they've made these t-shirts. And so what they do is that they put statements that you commonly say at the back of your shirt.
Okay.
So they gave me one 2 days ago, and then one of the statements was, I put it in my chat. So essentially I put in my chat GPT. And so one of the young, like the NSS people were saying, well, I didn't know that you are also like you are moving as quickly as we are. And I'm like, I'm probably using it more than you, but I am not stuck to anything. It's almost like, this is what's new. What does it mean? How do I adjust myself to the new reality and stuff like that? Yeah.
In your early days, do you feel, or maybe let me put the question differently, who had leverage over you, and how did you get that leverage back as a small up and coming business?
I think the very first, obviously, is competitor agencies.
Okay.
Because these are, the old guards, they have done it a certain way for a very long time. They have built relationships over years. So where are you from, and why should we give you,
allow you to,
But I think that, for me, I'm very sold on this concept of your unique selling proposition. Sometimes it's not really about going to fight to say, please include me. I need to be, you build in silence. So tidal rave, fresh affair, matriculation photo shoot, like we had several things like that. So you have your agency, but then we have this platform that you can't ignore. And so maybe it starts off by you bringing your agency to activate. Then you see that our execution was really good, and then you say, can you just activate it for me? And so by the time you realize, so like for example, this year we had maybe about 8 or 9 brands at Tidal Rave. We activated about 7 of them, right? Because
at your own event.
Yes, because they feel like you can build me into your event better than just giving me a stand and somebody. So I feel like leverage is built with time, and sometimes I think maybe we get so carried away with the idea of competition in the sense that I need to show you, but building in silence so that it becomes important for you to have to deal with me is usually more important for me, I think.
Have you ever thought about the success so far of EchoHouse and felt like, okay, this might not be repeatable? Or is there a part of it that you feel is repeatable and a part that was just timing?
So I feel like timing and the idea of being let me say repeatability is something that occurs from the beginning, but as your business grows you have to own it. And so I'll explain that, right? Let me give you an example. So maybe we have campus teams. When they finish school, they come and work with us in the office, some of them. And it was a very random thing. Like, it's almost like, who wants to come? Then I come. But usually you realize that it's, let's say, the loudest ones, not loudest, like the most active ones who end up there. But when you are growing as a business and you realize that, okay, now you're 100 people, you have 200 people and stuff like that, you realize that if you don't put a system to be able to attract the students to come in, as in the team, because maybe we have maybe 5,000 team members, right? How are you choosing your 10 who will come into the office? Then you have to put a system in place. So we'll create something called Project Find. So what we have done is that we've created several systems that look at the, let me say, timing, the things that occurred by timing and turn them into systems. So there's a Project Find. We have now something we call Echo Academy, which is all the things, it's like maybe we are able to move very quickly into new things, and that's probably because maybe I am a certain way, or the leadership team is a certain way. They're able to learn very fast, but I can't rely on the fact that everybody must learn fast. So we create an Echo Academy. An Echo Academy is like a proper school that is internal, so that teaches. We have courses, we have vacations, break time. We have Dr. Prince, who's like a professor of business from a doctor of business from Ashesi, who is like the dean. So it's a proper, like we're just about to kick off a new semester. And so, for example, because we are getting into African expansion, we know French is important. So French is now like a core subject in the academy. So it's like, how do you turn the things that happen by accident into systems that can be repeated? Otherwise, you are, it's like you're always going to be
just looking on
like, yes,
grace.
Exactly.
Okay.
You understand?
Now that you've said this, it's beginning to make sense, your growth. Now, we had been disconnected for almost 10, 15 years before we reconnected. Yeah. And I was shocked by
everything.
But then what you just said, for me, like, just makes it click to say you can't grow by accident.
No. It's not possible. And you can't, you can't think, sometimes when you're in business for a long time, you think you deserve it. You can't deserve growth
or success.
It's not because it is possible and therefore it will happen. And so I think I've moved beyond this idea of you will continue to grow to how do we manufacture this growth. So if, for example, maybe I say that we started to get work in French West Africa, I need to sit down and build a system around that. And I need people to have been learning French for the past, maybe a year or so that I can say, you have done 6 years with EchoHouse and we have trained you in leadership and you're ready to go. Otherwise, when you now decide that you're going there, you're going to go and randomly pick somebody, you don't know the person, and they're leading a business that you are, it's like you're running on luck. So I am in this space of trying to turn all lack conversations into systems and processes. Yes.
Well, I think the engineering is the kicker. It's reflecting very well here. You know what Steve Jobs said about you can't connect the dots looking forward, but you can always connect it looking back. Now it's beginning to make sense.
Yeah.
Okay. I wanted to talk a little bit about youth culture and power. And a lot of brands talk about youth, and you alluded to it as well. But then having systems or having a brand commit long term to youth culture tends to be a challenge. But I want to talk about it both from the conceptual point of view as well as from ethics point of view. Now, you are quoted as saying very often that you get every kind of youth. What does that mean? And is it not a way of just positioning yourself to exploit all kinds of youth?
So, when somebody comes to EchoHouse, we had a trainer come in and we did a fireside chat, and the way that everybody was, like, people were lying in the grass and all that, and he said, what place is this? What is going on here? Why are people free to just and so I was telling him that we say we want youth culture, and then we abhor what it comes with. Youth culture is a very fluid conversation, right? It means it's not me interpreting what they have to say, it's them expressing themselves. So I've several times I've been asked to speak about working with Gen Z and stuff like that, and saying that they're very difficult, how are you? And I'm like, well, it's because we have a preconceived idea of what, let me say, work must be, or what an outfit to work should look like, or things like that. If you are opening yourself up to the idea that you want to understand youth, you have to be with them. You cannot go and ask them a question and go back and continue doing what you're doing. You cannot build a product and have it ready and say, now go and sell it to the youth for me. It's not possible.
You have to build it.
You have to build it with them. So I think several years ago, when Vodafone wanted to do, at the time, as Vodafone wanted to do youth marketing, they had us bring our team members into the office every week for 6 months. I've never seen that kind of commitment from a brand before. 6 months, every week, young people come and sit down. They were meeting even to the extent of the CEO. So they didn't have a product built and then they just simply came to slap it on them. Now, by the time the product was ready, the young people even named it Vodafone X. It was named by them and everything. So by the time it came out, when maybe, for example, online there's a PR issue with X, Vodafone doesn't actually even have to come and say anything.
Because there are a lot of people who own,
like, this is our thing. You understand? And so it's usually the thing of just trying to get the brand to understand that this, to create for them, you can't say, I have this product ready, go and tell the youth, and you naturally think that they must like it. I don't know whether I'm making sense.
No, you are making a lot of sense, and it brought a thought to mind that, so where is the ethical line in youth culture, especially youth culture marketing, when a lot of agencies pretend to as something that they want to do, because at the end the brand wants to make money, the agency wants to make money, but then the young people who now become co-creators, whether the culture or the product, where is the ethics, and what structure do you put in place to make sure that everybody is being fairly treated?
So that actually, what you just said, that actually then becomes our role, facilitating the process, but also building the guidelines, in that engagement, right? And let me explain that. When young people say this won't work, like there's this conversation I was saying that if I think Henry Ford or something had asked what we want, I said want faster horses.
Yeah.
So just being able to tell that line between, is this no because they have not experienced it before, or is this no because it will truly not work, it's not aligned with who they are and stuff like that, is where that's sort of where our expertise must lie. That's one thing. The other thing is, what is good for, let me say, the future of this person that is being marketed to, what works, what is because so I have this thing around also, if somebody comes, and I say to the leadership all the time, the leadership team all the time, if somebody comes to work with us, they must be better for it. So not everybody will end up in the office with us, but so many of them have become so confident that they finish in their CVs, it is there that they work. And when the brand sees that they've been with Echo, it means that okay, there's something that they know that they can support. So how do we make sure that they are better for it? They are more outspoken, they are more exposed, they are more like this year we are rolling out a vacation school, so that when we are on when they are on vacation, because they have these very long periods of when they're on vacation, we are doing a couple of courses that will push them into knowing, like jump into knowing more than what school has taught them at that time.
Do you feel like at a point the youth culture or a particular youth culture will just become like a trend and not something that maybe can, let me put the question differently. There is that risk of youth culture being tied to trends. Now, for brands that want longevity, how do you build that fear and that concern? Because I don't want my brand to just be a trend and then tomorrow you fizzle out. So how do you manage that dichotomy?
I think it's interpretation, right? So let me explain this. If you see that young people are dancing, it doesn't mean that the brand must dance. It means that the brand must question what is causing young people to dance. They are dancing because of social media and all the platforms. They have this. We call it in the office. We call it life in view. They have a need to live their lives, outward, open to the world, for the world to see. That is the truth. The trend is the dance. So that interpretation gets lost a lot of time. So you see that a brand is also dancing. It doesn't mean no brand should dance, but you must wonder what is causing that conversation. Like, you know, you go online and you're seeing several content creators, like you see them today, you see them, and we see them begin all the time. They start at 3K followers. We come back in 2 months, they're at 10K. You come back, you know, a while later, they have, you know, 200K. They have a need to live their lives, you know, in view. And therefore, your brand can leverage on that. But you see, the point is, so first, let me say, I would say first responders, usually a brand will say, okay, I want to use these influencers to do something. But there's a bigger conversation around how do you create in perpetuity so that, you know, like, how do you build platforms that leverage this conversation? If you see that they are creating so much, do you want to turn this space into a, maybe on Fridays, should it become a creator space where they can come and shoot their content? You understand? Because if they shoot their content here, they see the dresses. They need space to create, because if you gave them a job today, they have to go and maybe rent a space to create. But if they can come and then maybe every whatever is 10 minutes, they are changing and creating their content and collaborating with each other, you have become part of the culture. You understand? Therefore, when they are buying from you, it doesn't feel like, why do I need to buy from you? But you are now with them, and therefore
it's like, why not buy from you?
Exactly. So that's the shift. You understand? It's more the reason, that's the truth in it, than the trend. Yeah.
Now, a lot of brands tend to, I've been in corporate, I've been a CMO before, so I get what you're saying. And because sometimes in corporate, there's also different things that are chasing them. So they tend to just want to look at what's right in front of them. So I can see that there'll be a lot of times where there'll be friction between you, who is keen on building the culture for the love of the culture, and then the brand that is just looking at their short-term benefit. Now, in your experience, have you ever had to now help a brand build a culture or build something for the youth, but a brand that you personally didn't respect?
No, you know, one of the so they're exciting brands, and then they're mundane brands, right? But they all stand for very different things. Obviously, once in a while, there are things, sometimes we have had to walk away from some certain situations because we say this won't work. You know, typically agencies are, let me say, silent creators in the space, but we are not able to do that because of what we stand for. Like, we are with them, their campus teams, they are with us, they come into the office, like, they will fight, like, you know, they fight like no, this one, you know. So we don't have the freedom of simply saying, let me go and do this just because of the money, right? We have to almost stay true to it, because these guys will hold us accountable. You know, last year I had the NSS team, two of them come sit with me. They had done a presentation on what they think needs to improve at EchoHouse, and then they asked to sit with me, and I realized that the leadership team was very surprised I was giving them the audience. I actually came for lunch with them on one of the restaurants on this stretch, and then they presented it to me. Then I gathered the leadership team for them to present, and it was a very brutal conversation. And it was funny because many other agencies say that we are like very youthful, and here was the youth telling us that we are being archaic because we are not doing this and we are not doing. It was so interesting to me. But I think this idea of really truly listening, you can't change everything, but the continuous art of like constantly listening and making changes as and when you can is a big decider when it comes to this conversation. I think there was something. So one of the things they presented was this idea that they have these ideas, and when they put it in, it's like all those ideas are removed. And because of that, I saw that my partner had now introduced something we call the wild card. So when we finish doing the presentation, on the last page we have the wild card, which is what they originally presented, like maybe some idea that they feel very passionate about, that they think it shouldn't die.
You guys might throw away.
So that it goes to the client, and then the client decides that. So, but they can see that it's a wild card. In this case, this is us pushing the edge a little. Do you want to try this out? So it's so you realize that it's not throwing one away or the other, but how do I get the two to coexist in one space?
That's actually interesting. And for me, sitting, like, imagining myself sitting from the agency client side, from the client side, I can actually see how I would appreciate an agency when you present an idea to me and you actually come with your wild cards as well. Because even if I don't take it, it helps me to understand the thought processes and what is happening in the organization.
Yes.
You know, it's a good one. Now I will move a little bit from the conversation up to like the ins of building the agency to the theory around, as an agency, you want to either sell services or own platforms, and I can see your effort around owning a lot of platforms. Why is it important to build platforms like the ones you have? Let's say the culture experiences, Tidal Rave, and the like. Why is it important for an agency to have that?
For me, the biggest reason is proof. You know, we say a lot of things about young people, and they are like this and they are like that, and all of it feels like theory, you know. But when you do a Tidal Rave, and then, for example, the whole country is talking about it, and whatever platform you use to push it and things like that, it has come to life that way. It is when you are sitting in front of your client, you're more credible. Because actually you've done it, you know. That's one thing. The other bit is, you know, the agency is, the client decides whether they work with you or not. When you build a platform, they cannot ignore you, because I want to be on this platform.
You want what you built.
Yeah, so it's not really about, then it's, you know, you sort of move away from all the politics or whatever that dynamic is, because I need to be on that platform. So for me, those two are the big things, right? Like the Tidal Rave conversation is usually interesting because it doesn't matter, like you have brands who come and sponsor, they haven't worked with us before, and then after that they start to work with us, you know. So that aspect of it is also very, very important to me.
You know, my next question I was going to ask, which is harder, running client work or running your own
running your
platforms?
own is so hard.
But then now I want to shift it a little bit to putting yourself in running your own platforms. From a business side, it helps you to not become a price taker, because now you set the price.
Yeah, but you know, you have to invest in it for so long before it starts to, you know, festivals in these parts, the margins are like very thin. You sort of have to mature it over and over and over for brands to start to see the value. So there are several brands who maybe over the years you put them on for free for a while for them to see, oh my gosh, before they will. So it's a long-term, painstaking process that sometimes can be, you know. But yeah, it's
Tidal Rave, talking about profitability, Tidal Rave has been running for how many years now?
It's been running, this year was the
13 years.
Yeah.
Okay, at what point did you become profitable?
When we came back to Accra, this is 3 years ago.
So after the 10th edition, before you started seeing the profitability.
Yeah, even that.
So now for 10 years, like what kept you believing and going back? Are you all right?
you know, so that's the truth, right? It's I think that long-term value, and I've seen it with brands all over the world, like long-term value is not built overnight at all. And it's very, so you, at a point, you know, take it that when people are coming to interview with EchoHouse, they think that they're coming to interview for Tidal Rave. So it means that it sends your brand out there. So if we go into a room and we are introducing ourselves to EchoHouse, like EchoHouse, so the people who do Tidal Rave, oh, you know, so at least you know that you are in a league of your own in that sense. So it has served other purposes in the past outside the monetary bit, right? And we will say, okay, let's dedicate a certain percentage of our profits as a business to do that until it has started to do well
on its own. And I think from what you said, it could also actually become like a loss leader, where now because of that it will bring in paying clients who now,
so it was a BD tool for us for a long time, business development tool. It's like, okay, we do it because typically when you finish that, we get a lot of briefs, right? Like, and we have people who even say things like, do the same thing for me. Like end of year parties, people say, I want the same venue, I want that kind of setup, I want this. So it helps you in that space. So I think for us, value isn't only in terms of the monetary thing that we get, but also all the other benefits that are drawn from it.
Now that you've talked about money, I want to move the conversation around money and measurement, KPIs. And when it comes to marketing and marketing communications, a lot of things tend to be in the sky.
Yeah.
You know, people just want to fluff their way through. So and creativity is an emotional thing. Money is not. How do you reconcile the two?
You know, I think money is like the tool to propel creativity forward, in a sense. Money is not the enemy. Money is, I mean, when you don't have enough of it, it's problematic. That is when you get creative, because then you feel like, okay, if I don't do it this way, then I can do this and I can do that. So not having the money makes you more creative around, the process. Somebody was asking me recently, we've sort of done this for a while. We've never raised money. Someone was asking me recently why we haven't tried to raise money. I'm like, when the money is there, the first option that comes, you just go with it. But when the money is not there, you'll be thinking so many different, okay, well, if I move this and I touch this and I pass here and I go here, so it's a dynamic that exists together, but the two must sort of be understood very well. Otherwise, you would think one means the other, and it doesn't.
I will ask you a very edgy or pushy question.
Oh gosh.
Working as an agency person, what metrics do you think, do you trust, and which ones do you think lie, but still you tell the clients?
Repeat business is, for me, a very big, yes, it's the truth. Retain teams is the truth. I have people who have worked with me now for 15 years, 12 years. Those things are, for me, very true. The client actually meeting, so we've been doing some work with Pepsodent, and the client is just telling us that for the past 2 years that we've been on it, the brand has grown and given us real numbers, to show, and so because of that, like, our targets have completely, blown through the roof, but we have done work that has reflected. Nothing else for me it's not really about doing a nice campaign that everybody, and I understand that can be nice, but sometimes the reality of it is you can see a brand do some very big nice campaign and then the next minute they are shutting down.
Okay.
You must it puts you in this.
But then now that you said this, I'll push the envelope a little bit. You did a nice campaign for Vodafone X was an exciting thing, and Vodafone shut down.
No, so well, this is what typically we were of the belief that it needed to be age gated, right? Age gated in the sense that young people, when they are getting off the what's it called?
University or school.
When they pass a certain age, they need to be rolled onto a more, let me say, expensive
plan.
offer.
Oh, okay.
You understand? But at the point that it was opened up to anyone, and so naturally it started to cannibalize everything else, and at a point it was closed down. You understand? So you see, and that's what I'm saying. You realize that the power of the agency is in creating.
It's only so much.
You can only do, and for me it's not, I don't know how to explain that. The longevity being, I think Byte keeps saying this thing of, usually you are creating and you sort of are reaching somewhere, and then even the business goals change. Do you understand? So let me give an example. If youth were not, if the brand was not appealing to youth, and then you work to make it appealing, when somebody new comes, they don't know that there was a point when it was not appealing. They meet it as an appealing brand. So you can gamble with whatever new is that. There's now a new problem, maybe HVC. You have good telco experience, so you will know that, like, so that then it's shifted completely into a new conversation. The problem though is, like, and that's what I was trying to tell you, how do we get into a space where building a new dynamic doesn't mean we throw the old thing away? So that's why we create platforms, actually. Yeah.
Do you think that money in the creative economy reward that which you wish it didn't?
I feel like these days money seems to reward sometimes being loud. I don't know.
Without substance.
Loud. Like, so there's a law of that, right? Like, and it's something I'm very careful about, because it's easy, for example, I could be coming on here and just go and look for ChatGPT answers and come and sit here and say things. Sometimes when I'm invited to a platform to talk about, let's say, my story, I keep saying that I think that, for example, I left engineering, but somebody also has stayed in engineering and has become very successful. So I'm very careful with the narrative that is pushed, right? And then I think you mentioned this idea of it's a lot of learning when you look into the past. So I have the benefits of the past, right? And so I maybe I don't want somebody to listen to this and maybe, for example, maybe I didn't raise money to do the business, and therefore the person also decides, okay, I also not raise, but maybe their business needs it. So I'm careful about that whole narrative. I think the only truth for me is whatever you're doing, do it with all your might, do it with all your strength, and then allow it to, have your conviction and all that. And then you allow it to grow into whatever you want. What's it called? Into whatever it can be, the best of itself. Yeah.
Beryl, EchoHouse has grown 15 years, and now you are moving into other countries. When I think about the systems you've put in place, and maybe from my personal experience, having lived also and worked in multiple African countries, it's I can see a foundation that makes scaling possible.
Yeah.
But for you, in your experience up until now, what breaks first when you scale across African markets? Is it the people?
The systems.
I didn't even finish the question.
It's the systems.
The systems.
Ghana, we have grown based on trust. Like, we've done so much in the market that is very easy. Like, if I come in and come, so we did title, it's like a simple conversation. Then you go into Liberia, and you have to prove again why. And they're also very different people, and what matters to them is different. So then you go into Nigeria, and they're in a hurry, right? Like, everything is speed, and you have to be vocal. I don't really understand. Like, in Ghana, for example, you're looking for sponsorship. Nobody really comes and says no. They just say, I'll come back to you, and never do. A Nigerian man says, I will not be able to sponsor. And they've told you.
You need to learn to be okay with that.
Yes. So what are your systems versus the local, nuances? So that dynamic is, have your systems. So what we do now is we say, so we have a regional team that is systemizing, right? So this regional team have grown with Echo. They know how everything is. So they are building the system. Now these systems through SOPs, everything, blueprints, whatever, playbooks. Then the country lead is responsible for localizing it. It means that you say, okay, for example, almost every brief you get in Nigeria is in a hurry. Like, we used to think Ghana was in a hurry until Nigeria is like, they can send us a brief, and it's like a big brief, and they say it's 2 days, and I'm like, oh. So you are now going to decide, are you going to be in the market or not? Because whatever I need 2 weeks, it doesn't work there. If you not do it in 2 days, somebody will. Or even like, are you now going to take that your SOP again and then relook at it in terms of how it works for Nigeria? You understand? So that whole dynamic, in Benin, we see that billing, you bill through the government. Like, I've never seen anything like it before.
As a private company,
yeah, you
bill other private companies through the government.
Yeah, that's how so you bill through the government. So, tax, like, you bill through the government, and then, they take their money. Yeah. So it's just this idea of, this is my system as a foundation, and then this is how I modify it. If you don't go that route, every day you're going to be firefighting, because you will notice things as they come, and then realize that, hey, no, it wasn't this way here. What do I need to do now, and stuff like that. So that's, let's say, maybe 90% of my preoccupation now. Yeah.
I was going to ask, how different is it running an agency between all these countries? But obviously you've answered that. But now, where you sit in terms of your growth trajectory, do you spend more of your time now worrying more around these systems and how to replicate the Echo around the countries?
Yeah, that's so I'm not really actually doing any day-to-day anymore. A lot of my work is this idea of, last year we entered South Africa because we had won a couple of pitches, and so we have this.
You have to say it very confidently and boldly. You're playing a typical Ghanaian. You won, was it Johnny Walker, right?
Yes, Johnny Walker, Singleton, Casamigos.
For how many countries?
Southwest and Central Africa. So the
Southwest and Central Africa. Yeah. That's like a big one. Congratulations.
Thank you. So yeah, we are very excited, and then we are shocked because of culture, right? Just working in, say, South Africa, and like here, we have a startup nature. So morning to night, we are, then we go there and realize that no, it's 5.
5 o'clock, knock
nobody. Yeah, and I was just saying recently that maybe it's even a real wake up call for me. Just sort of having been neck deep in this thing for so long and realize that no, you need to take a break. So they will, like, no matter what is going on in the world, when it's 5, it's done. And so I'm just like, what will it look like? We obviously want to be able to, sustain this. So what should a marriage of West and South and Central actually look like? So that's sort of where that's where I spend my time these days. Yeah.
My final question on this will be around like assumptions about building in Africa. What one assumption did you have that has proven to be dangerously wrong?
I think one big thing being this idea of one Africa, looking at one Africa through just a blanket, right? And saying it is one, it's like you speak one language and you've spoken to everybody, because the understanding everybody has, or everybody's culture is supreme. You are not there to fight culture. You are there to work through culture to send a message across. Sometimes you can say, why is something this way? I was telling my team, for example, that we are all West Africans on this side, and maybe you go and realize maybe a South African at 5 is done. So are you going to spend your time fighting that? Or are you going to say, okay, this is how it works here.
How do I make
the best of it? So that's, culture is just so powerful because it's who we are, it's who we've always been, it's what we think is right or wrong. So you can't use one statement to change somebody's, thinking around how things work. So that's the new problem that is on my table to solve. Yeah.
I look at how you look at issues, whether it's the cultural clashes or whether it's like growing and putting structures in place. And I don't know if part of that strength also comes from the fact that you are a woman and you are building from a nurturing and a motherly aspect for the way you are building the business. Do you think being a woman has been a bit of a plus in the way you've looked at building?
I think it's plus and minus, right? Like plus because of typically my partner was saying to me that usually when there's something that I call out at the time, it's not a problem yet, and then you see in time that this was so. If you're not careful, it will be looking like I'm saying something I'm imagining things, right? But then it comes a lot of baggage, and I'll explain that baggage in the sense that you're feeling things no one is feeling yet, and having to convince them that this is where things may go. So unless you have a team that actually gets to know you and trust you, you're always going to you have a deficit of they are in one place and you're in one place, and then there's a fight essentially. So I decide which battles I want to fight and which ones I will let go. But typically it's like I started out from a very emotive or emotional space and built systems within it. So if I'm thinking, okay, this is what we need to do, like for example this thing I'm talking about in terms of this South African, West African culture, I can be saying, guys, we need to, and then I'm like, actually we have something we call the echo mindset. I need the Baku is the South African setup we've done. I need the Baku team to take the echo mindset document and build a Baku mindset document out of it, which picks the best of West and South and everything into what is acceptable for Baku. You understand? So very fundamental situation is when there's when we send a meeting request, when it's time we come and remind the person again. Then I realized that, and you don't actually even go and accept the meeting because it's like, okay, I've seen the meeting. But I came across the South Africans and I realized that your acceptance or not of the meeting request is how they know that you are going to be in the meeting. And for me, it has completely transformed, and it has transformed the way I work, because now you understand, my calendar actually means something. Initially it didn't, because I know that it will come and call me. But I mean, we've learned from our South African lead that no, you have to accept or decline. If you decline, she goes back into your calendar and looks for other and I just thought, oh my god, that's so efficient. And I know it's a very simple thing, but those are the nuances.
Little nuances.
Yeah, so I said to my team, if you can pick up something like this, you are so much better off than simply leaving the request pending and then finding out later that you needed to have accepted.
What has being a woman founder cost you that you don't talk about?
This balance, this idea of balance, that
Work-life balance.
I don't think it exists, right?
In me, I think it's a fact. So on that one,
no, even so men, you guys don't, you don't. There are many things that don't. So let me give you an example. If I haven't seen my son in a while, right, and I work with my husband, so we are in two different places, and what I'm saying, like we are together in a space. Maybe we are traveling. We've traveled for a bit. Because of my womanly instincts, at a point where I begin to say, oh my God, I need to get back to Roman, and Bright knows that, oh, he's safe and he's fine. You understand? So it's a baggage for me because he doesn't understand, like, what. But when we can, they are very close, the two of them. So it's not even as if he's not like
present or
yeah, he's extremely close to him. But when he's gone to go and do that and come back. But when I am gone and I'm there. You understand? I'm just like, well, I need to go back. So I feel like that dynamic, as the thing is growing, I begin to wonder what's going to happen, because maybe you're spending a lot of time in all these other countries. What does it mean with raising a son in a space like this? I do not think my partner has to worry about it. He feels we're building something so that he is also secure in the future, in a sense. So it's a bit of a it can get a bit confusing. Yeah.
When you look at the challenges that come with being a woman and building, do you also see like advantages that come with it that men don't see or don't get?
Yeah, I think so. I think first of all, I think it's a bit easier to trust women. I don't know. It's not even like, and I know sometimes it's a conversation, but I think it's a bit easier to trust. And it's not necessarily what's it called, a perception I have, because I've worked with several people, but I think that it's just a little easier to trust a woman. I also think that being a woman makes you also so perceptive that you are able to nip things in the bud before they become big problems. Because sometimes there's something I'm saying, and the guy says, "Oh, it's not a problem." I'm like, "No, it's a problem," and then I go ahead and make certain changes. It's like, "Oh my God, if we didn't do this, this will have happened." So I use that to my advantage, but I'm surrounded by a lot of men, actually. So there's also the dynamic where they have their strengths. Like, men can be very single-minded in achieving something. Yes, so this needs to be. So they go in and they get it done, and so I think the big thing is the blend and knowing how to use all the different strengths. I would keep a relationship for many years. So sometimes somebody with us, maybe a client, when they're done, the man usually is like, okay, everybody's moved on. I can keep a relationship for years until so sometimes somebody reaches out to me, it's been 7 years since we worked together, but because we still keep in touch. So I feel like we've sort of come into this understanding of what everybody's strength is, and then we sort of use it, to further the business.
You talked about trust and the fact that it's easier for people to trust women.
I think generally, yes.
You're in an industry that is full of a lot of hype, and people have to show that they are there. Create fun and still be seen to be fun, no matter what you're dealing with. Mm-hmm. How do you protect your integrity?
So first of all, I'm not playing the game. I'm not playing the game. So let me explain this. I feel like there's all the noise, right? But there's also value in what the thing actually is, and I'm very careful about that. So I know sometimes people say, "Well, your social media, my social media is okay, right? It's fine, but you can also go the extra mile and do all of that." And I just don't believe in it as much, for what I am doing. And I'll explain that. Sometimes the business that one does needs them to be that, and so that is fine. But I'm not an influencer, right? I'm not a content creator. Mm-hmm. I position myself as the the engine behind the performance,
creator.
right? Not the creator. So I am not interested in as much in the look and feel of my personal page. My products and services must speak for itself, right? Because if I work with a brand today and they get value from what I've just done for them, there's nothing else that matters. I feel like, and so there was something I was saying recently, because a lot of the times I sort of decline invitations and people say, and I'm just like, if I'm not careful, I'll become a PR like led leader.
Okay.
Because if you're not careful, what you do is you go on and keep saying the very same things on different platforms. When the tide is turning so quickly, things are changing, you're not careful, you're not actually looking at what is happening.
You're not keeping your eye on the ball.
I'm so nervous about that. Like, it's my, I don't know, my very big fear. Yeah.
But I believe that you've done well so far, and the business is doing great, and you've made some good money as well. How do you handle that proximity to money and influence and power without losing yourself? Because your previous comment, you said that you are very keen on not playing the game.
Yeah. The team that surrounds me, they will not even let me, so I am not like a supreme leader who just snaps my finger. Systems are in place, right? For me to even have access to something, we run, the way the business is run is not like, maybe, Beryl, I need 500,000, give me 500,000, let me go, and it doesn't run that way. So we run it typically when somebody comes in and looks at maybe how we've kept our finances and stuff like that, there's always this conversation, is there somebody in the back running this thing, because we have taken it through a very systemized process, how salaries are done, how, everything is a system. So I can't simply say, hey, this person looks like, pay this person more. That's not how it works, right? We've done salary grading, like everything that needs to be done is done. Even I'm paid a salary. So that dynamic of simply saying, now that we are powerful, I can do this or that. We have a 5-year plan, we have a 10-year plan, that's the regional team we are all trying to work towards. Yeah.
Okay. What you just said about your relationship with your team and how you try to also, and how it helps to keep you grounded.
Yeah.
What leadership behavior are you actively trying to unlearn?
This idea that I must do everything. When you've built something from startup to when it's bigger and all that, you can get into this space where you feel like, obviously the buck stops with you, but but it doesn't need you to be operational in every way. It's not healthy. And I'm saying this I'm not saying this from a point of being an expert of it. It's one of the things I'm working on now, because I appreciate this idea that I cannot be stepping into every situation. So presently, actually, this first quarter, the job let's say the system we are building has to do with management team and when and how you intervene, because I am a very hands-on person, and so naturally something's going on, I'm like, I just want to do it myself, and it's not possible, because like last year I was in this place where maybe you fix one thing in maybe South Africa, then something happens in Nigeria, then you run there, then it's like you can't, it's not possible.
You're always on the road.
You can't, it's not possible. You get it? So that's sort of me trying to figure out how to move away from that conversation.
Before we get into the final stages of this conversation and wrap up, what will it take for you to walk away from EchoHouse? Do you ever see yourself?
I mean, recently it's now deeping that, okay, it's a business you've built, right? It was not that for me at first. Walk away. I just think that, two things are important to me. People are very, very important. Like I put a lot of effort into just carrying my people along, right? And then the other thing is creating. And I think I exist for those two things. So if I get into a space where I'm, let me say, unable to help my people, and and then if I get to a point where I'm unable to create anymore, that I probably would. So in the past we've had these conversations about joining like one of the networks and things. And I was like, would we be able to create? Like, would we be able to create?
No, I thought that you actually think about creating your own network.
Yeah, so that's now.
So like you put the playbook together for what you built, and then use it as a channel to go both across the continent and international.
Yes, so that's
especially in emerging markets.
Yeah, exactly. So that's sort of what we have. Let me say concluded on now, that we would love to be able to build it, because sometimes what you realize, maybe somebody from Mali, or like an agency from Mali, or a smaller agency reaches out wanting to be a part of the Echo. You're like, okay, maybe that's a thing to consider. So we've sort of we are trying to systemize that conversation now and see how to go about it. But yeah,
what part of your story do people misunderstand the most?
They think we just happened. So they think that, how you went back and then it was 2010.
Yes.
But I think people feel like, where did they come from? Or they still say the kids. But I'm not a kid anymore. Now I'm grown. So this dynamic of like just being seen. You know how like when there are these Hollywood stars who start as kids and everybody refuses to see them as sometimes I feel like we suffer from that conversation, but no, we are. So people just think that we came out of nowhere and just appeared.
In the space where you've built your agency, what part of the creative economy in Africa are we, or let me put, what hard truth about the creative economy in Africa are we avoiding?
I think this idea of monetizing of creative, we are at the very beginning of it, right? Like, I don't think we are putting enough effort into trying to understand this monetization conversation. And when I say that, I don't just mean monetizing on platforms, but if somebody is a creative person and they have this talent or this whatever, what is the pipeline for them? You understand, in unearthing the, I feel like countries like China put a lot of effort into just understanding monetization, and I feel like when you do that well, the rest of the world comes to you. I worry that we will be very decentralized in our approach to it, because we are not having a central conversation. We are not together coming to say, everybody says Africa is the next frontier, but Africa is not frontiering itself together.
I had a post on LinkedIn one time where I said, we are saying that in 2030, 1 in every 4 human beings on the continent and the world is going to be African, and they're going to be consumers, but we are not designing them for them to be consumers for African products. No. We are making them consumers for the rest of the world, which is really connected to what you are saying. Recently, I saw something, I don't know, is there something that government from a policy point of view can do?
I think like I'm saying, when all these people have so many products and services, and even just creating a platform that centralizes that gives us power, right? And what I mean by that is there's all this shit, there's so much of us. I'll refer to even what you do. Can you imagine this as a place where every African creator, in a sense, is able to land there, and we are not able to, because typically, if, like, my sister is a fashion designer, right, and I think she makes incredible stuff, but if can a Kenyan buy her stuff, right? Even if we forgot about, and this is me being, forgot about the West and said, okay, amongst us, let us buy each other's stuff. And African designers are doing incredible. Look at the Nigerian designers and stuff. Even that alone, you understand, is a great place to begin. But we are not having those conversations. So the government, if the government would back, like, Afro quality in a sense, right? Because typically, even the cost of, moving your products and all that, if the tax you have to pay when you bring the duty, all the clearing costs, all those things. But beyond the fact that it's a business you're building, there's also a very huge service you're doing for this idea of unification of Africa. And so platforms like this must be supported.
Give the support.
Yeah.
So my last 2 questions, Beryl. What kind of EchoHouse, or what kind of Africa does EchoHouse need to exist in the next 20 years?
Well, an Africa that rewards creativity, an Africa that rewards creators, an Africa that is consolidated in our approach to, like, let's say, to our response to what's happening in the world, right? Coming together so that they're talking about AI, but we are looking at AI in very individual ways, right? But what is the African response to something like that? So an Africa that is more intentional about building together and building platforms. Yeah.
My final question. So we talked about what will make you step away from EchoHouse. Definitely at some point you would leave the business. When that time comes and you are leaving EchoHouse, what's the one thing that should exist that would make you feel like you didn't waste your time?
So I have this concept of intentional empathy, right? And I'll explain that. When we are creating, we spoke about this idea of we can only look back and build and stuff like that. You see, because we can only do what we can with the information we have, then the younger generation comes in with the information they have. But when they have come, this younger generation must be put on. They must be given the platform. And that thing is not an easy thing at all. It's not easy to identify and know that it's time to give the next person a platform. I feel like it's something that I've been very intentional about, and I hope that is something that I'm able to impart to my leaders and sort of just keep, everybody keeps paying it forward in a sense. So if I'm a company or a business that allows young people to come in and come up, and is then what I will know that I didn't waste my time with. I feel like when we get that right, continuity of the business is assured, right? Because it's not my ideas that Echo is running with. Echo is probably running with my experience, so that when I say we must build a system like this so that this happens, that's, but it is not running with my ideas. It's running with the ideas of younger people. You understand? And that distinction is a very scary thing, something that we have to be more intentional about than simply allowing it to play out. Yeah.
Beryl Agyekum Ayaaba. It's been a wonderful conversation.
It has.
I have learned a lot, and thank you for taking the time off your busy schedule to be with us here on Rooted in Quality. It's been an amazing conversation. Beryl runs EchoHouse, which is one of the biggest youth agencies in Ghana and currently in Africa, operating in almost how many countries now?
8.
Operating in 8 countries and counting. It's been a wonderful conversation. Keep yourself locked up. We'll be here again with another conversation from someplace, somewhere around the continent. Stay blessed and keep supporting Afro Quality.